Good morning to Nick Chicks family. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your girl, Lady and the Chef, joined by my co-host this morning.
D Black's 21. What's up?
And finally, we are blessed to be able to have the one and only Stephanie, aka Queen, from Dope Soul Sports Talk and Knicks Talk, under the NBA Nothing But Knicks New York Knicks channel. You guys have seen her. She's always showing love to many Knicks content creators as well as ourselves, who's helped bring some of her followers over to our channel, which we greatly appreciate. So we're super happy to have you here, Steph, to talk New York Knicks. Love your takes and your commentary. I'm definitely part of the replay gang, so I've been watching you
Yeah.
and Jeff hold it down. I love that Jeff is available most times, or when it's you and Ajay as well. So I'm definitely part of the replay gang when I can't watch you guys live because I try to catch you live, but you have haters at the workplace, so they be wondering why I'm looking down at my phone sometimes trying to watch you. So I usually gotta like catch it at the tail end, but then I'll go and rewatch it and listen to it. But nonetheless, great content. So it's super duper excited to have you here today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And when I was preparing to come on, I said, I can't believe this is my first time on the show. Like
I
can't,
know.
I can't believe it. But I'll try to be a bit more regular if you guys are having me. But I just want to say what you two are doing and the consistency that you're doing it, that's what makes a channel. And that was the best advice I got when I was starting out. Steph, if you're gonna do this, you gotta be consistent. They
Right.
gotta know where they can find you. And
Mm,
you two show up consistently on the days that you say you're going to show up, and that's phenomenal. I remember my first few live shows I had, and I came from Queens Court, so people knew who I was. I had like 10, people in the chat. But it takes time, but you're dedicated to your craft, and all of the other stuff will come after that. And I love your takes. I love what you put out. And I try to catch on the replay game, but I gotta be honest, this year has been
Right.
it's been something else. I can't even get out the content I want to get out.
Right.
But I do see the notification come up. I said, "Look at them, boy! They serious about it." So yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to have more females in this space consistently.
Yeah.
So good things to come, better things to come for you too.
Absolutely. And I agree. And
for sure.
you're more than welcome anytime. And there's other content creators as well. Like we still haven't gotten, Tony Crow on here because of like the scheduling conflict. Same thing with Ron from Still Knicks fans. So there's plenty of I want to get Ebony on the show, BX, because I
Yes,
want to get back to doing our ladies night, especially with
yes.
the season upcoming. I know Diva Locks is chomping at the bits. She barely leaving any meat on the bone because she's so thirsty for the Knicks to start already, as most of us Knicks fans
Yo,
are. But we can't wait to have other because we like that. Like we've had Jeff on here, we've had Aj on here, we've had Jay Boogie on, Boulevard, and Corey Lee from 718 Boys. So it's nice to have other people and get their takes as well as their opinions on what they're saying, and we could all have a healthy debate. And
Yes.
like Corey Lee always gets on me because he's always like, you always kill me with your takes, but I'm like, that's what makes for great conversation. You may not agree with what I'm saying, but sometimes when you're listening to someone else on a channel, you go, oh, I didn't even think of it that way, or I didn't look at it like that. So it makes me see it from a different perspective when we're talking Knicks basketball. Same thing with the Liberty. Sometimes Diva Locks would be like, well, you got to think of it. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Let me back up. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have others on to be able to have a healthy conversation and be able to talk what we all love, our New York Knicks and basketball in general. So I'm
general.
excited
Exactly.
when we can have
Yeah.
another panel member join us.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
joy.
For sure.
Thank you for joining us. I watch. I'm the part of replay gang too. Sometimes I'm like laying in the bed. I'm like listening to y'all or something that I may chime in or whatever. Then I'll make
Yeah.
those off, but I pick up where I left off at.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
appreciate you.
I got to
Yeah.
get better with those comments though. Like I feel like I got to like have a designated day in my schedule where I go and check the comments before. Now when I go, I'm like, oh, I haven't been here in a while. It's like 100 of them.
Yeah,
And I
Wow.
really try to answer each one. So I think if I go back after each show, it'll be much easier than letting like 10 shows pass.
Right.
mm,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, your show does very well. It's, and you know your show is has the followers when you can take a break and then come back and you still get like so many views.
Right.
You know, it just, I think it's funny though, like you'll get 1,500, 2,000 views and then you'll only have a certain amount of likes. And I'm like, y'all couldn't just hit that like button. It's free. I don't understand people. I'm like, it's free. Just hit the like button, you know? So it never correlates. But
Right.
nonetheless, I mean,
Right.
I think that speaks volumes because I even noticed with Sim, who's been busy throughout
It's
the
been rough.
summer, and the same thing with Tony and yourself. And I look and I'm like, wow, like look at how he was able to get 2,000 plus views, 3,000 views, your channel, you know, so many views, Tony. And I'm like, you know, even with Ron, who is very consistent, and Ron's been doing this thing lately where he's been shouting out all the Knicks content creators. And shout out to Ron. I
Yes.
can't wait to get him on here. He always shows love to us and our channel. But
Yeah.
you know, I just think that you're very right. I think in content creation in general, the name of the game is consistency.
Correct.
You know, so you have to stay there and be able to let people know that you're here and you're, you know, you're serious about this, and people will watch. They'll follow you. So
Yeah.
very right about that. Shout out to the chat. Those of you who are checking in very early with us, you're in for a goodie. So I did want to start off the show before we get into the whole Randall talk.
Mhm.
I did read an article from Heavy Sports, basically talking about how the Knicks are looking to remain contenders in the Eastern Conference, which is very true,
Mhm.
and how they need to replace Isaiah Hartenstein's production in the center spot, which has been a lot of talks as of late.
Mhm.
So Sean Devaney of Heavy Sports reported that one NBA executive floated a trade between the Knicks and the Chicago Bulls that would land the two-time All-Star center Nikola Vucevic in New York. He
Mhm.
said the executive stated, he didn't say what executive, but he said the executive stated, and quote, the Knicks, that is not really Tom's, he said, for the Knicks, that is not really Tom's kind of big man, speaking about Vucevic. But
Mhm.
when you look at Boston, they can play five out, end quote. He said they can put five shooters on the floor, speaking of Boston, that
Mhm.
is going to be key for any team that wants to keep up with them. The Knicks can't do that, but you can add a guy like Vucevic, and that's a game changer.
Right.
He said, while the executive acknowledged that Vucevic is not the typical Tom Thibodeau player, presumably because of the subpar defense, the two-time NBA All-Star could help them offensively if the price made sense. I want to know your thoughts on one, do you guys think that your thoughts on that, first of all, about the Knicks potentially adding Vucevic if they needed to?
Mhm.
Because right now it seems like the Knicks are on a wait and see basis. Let's see how this first half of the season goes. And then when the deadline comes in January, we'll see if we need to add, make a
Right.
move, whatever.
Right.
But one of my questions to both of you was that I did have written down was, what are you both comfortable with having with having Mitchell Robinson, Jericho Sims, and Precious Achua holding down the center spot with an occasional small lineup with Randle and maybe Josh Hart having to play the smaller lineup? But are you both okay, and is that sustainable, at least for the first half of the season, having that lineup? Or do you think the Knicks need to entertain maybe bringing in Vucevic? And one of the other guys was Dwight Howard, who they brought up in another article that I had some notes about. I guess we could start with Diva Lux and then we'll go to Queen.
Well, for the question as far as the center position, um, for now, I'm like at this point, just wait. Um, No, I'm not comfortable, but at this rate, what we're gonna do is locked, I guess, to see how well they do. Um, it's it seems like they're gonna do a lot of small ball. I guess maybe even transfer Randle to the five. And maybe even have, who knows, Josh Hart coming at the four. But as right now, I'm not comfortable. But this is where we're lying at going into the season.
Yeah.
With Mitch, Precious, um, Sims, yeah, coming in, getting some playing time. I certainly would have loved for them to, explore another, I guess, legitimate center, because that's, to me, Precious is definitely not he's not a legitimate center. I mean, he can hold his own to a certain extent, but I wish they would have explored other options, because we know where Mitch lies at as far as just what he can give us for the season, and what he's, where he's, as far as his injury. I, you know, I'm not happy, but again, this is where we're at. I wish they would have, explore another option, and possibly bring in somebody who can come in behind Mitch, because Hartenstein, he's going to be surely missed as far as just what he's done, and just a lot of things, the intangibles that he brought as a center. Um, with Precious can't do that. Neither can Mitch. I do love Mitch offensively and defensively, but just overall, the other thing he's lacking, just his free throws, his court, his the vision, as far as to me, he's kind of, I don't want to say one dimensional, because there's other things that he can do, but you know we don't see the outside shot, any type of mid range. If he's a lob guy, and let's face it, that's how I see him now. But he does bring other things, to the court. But this is where we're at. But we have to wait and see.
Yeah, I don't know if Diva Locks left anything on the bone for me. I think
Now you got. Nah, I love your insight. You
I,
kidding
I
me?
yeah, I think I agree. I've gotten comfortable. I've gotten comfortable with the center lineup if if Tom Thibodeau is committed to small ball. If Tom Thibodeau is not committed to some small ball lineups, I am not
Mhm.
happy, because in my opinion, Mitch, Sims, and Precious are pretty much the same players offensively. Now, I think Precious is a little better offensively, but my point is the defense doesn't have to play any of those guys.
Yeah.
Whoever their defender is can stand in the key, can roam, can double team Brunson. They have a little more freedom. They don't have to be super alert, because neither of those guys are going to take a jump shot. You can't put any of those guys in a pick and roll other than for a lob. You can do that. So if Tom Thibodeau is not committed to small ball, I am not happy with this lineup, particularly, and it gets worse. This is even with a healthy Mitch. No small ball, I'm not happy. But if Mitch were to get healthy, excuse me, injured,
Mm.
now you got Precious Achua basically being a starter. And to your point, Diva Locks, he can give you spot minutes there. When he filled in when both Mitch and Isaiah Hartenstein was down, he did a pretty good job
Yeah.
statistically. The Knicks on off now or plus minus wasn't that great, but he himself performed really good. Um, so yeah, I think if we're gonna stick with these three centers, you have to commit to small ball. And the reason I say that is you want to make that defense work. You want to make that defense, everybody on our starting lineup can handle the ball. They can shoot it, they can pass it. So you're going to have to commit. You can't double team anybody. You're going to
Mm.
have to stay home, and that makes our offense a bit more dynamic. Also, if you have on offense anyway, OG can play center on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, if you have Randall at the five, now we can have cutters, because first of all, there's space to cut, right?
Mhm.
If Mitchell Robinson and those are there, there's no backdoor cuts because their guy is right in the
Yeah.
lane. But with Randle, say Randle is at the foul line, free throw extended, his guy has to play up. So there's a lot of space in the key for cutters, and Randle can make that pass. See, I heard people say, well, you can have a small ball lineup with Precious. You can, but you're just a small lineup. But I don't know if you're a small ball lineup because I don't know if his guy is going to play up close to him. And if so, I don't know if he can hit backdoor cutters, like a Randall can. So that center position is tenuous. But I
Mm.
think we could get by if Thibodeau commits to some small ball lineups. If he doesn't, I don't think we're gonna get as much out of our offense as we can.
But neither of you, I've seen people comment and say they feel as if this is Jericho Sims' first year coming into a new season from a non-injury, and he looks strong, he looks good. And I think I even mentioned this to Divalox, where to me there seems to be a little bit of pressure, somewhat, on Sims because I think if I'm putting myself in a front office position, if personnel, if I work for a NBA organization front office, a player like him, you're looking at him like if you don't perform this year, you're out of here. Like, what are we going to keep holding on to you for when we can bring someone else in who can fulfill his position and give us more of what we're looking for? But do you, either of you, think that maybe he can? And I'm always a firm. I always say I love when a player can shut me up. Do you think that Sims could come in this season and possibly give us a little bit more, or you're not holding your breath?
Yeah, maybe. Anything is possible. I'm not holding my breath, but it's you know, it's possible.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with Queen. Yeah, I'm not holding my breath, but hey, maybe this will be his year. Um, and sometimes when you know there's a player like that, uh, hypothetically, Huck 40, you
Yeah,
know, maybe this will light some fire under him because his position can be gotten. You
I
know, like it's always a next man up. Not that Huck Porty's going to play this season, but who knows? Maybe next season
right.
he can be an option. So maybe this will light some fire under center. He's probably in the lab, working. Everybody says, "Oh, I see him," working out. But can that translate on the court and in the season?
Right.
Every year everybody says, "Oh, I see Sims working out." Da, da, da. I do too, but
I
it
saw
doesn't
Mitch working out
translate.
a few times too, right?
Yes. Yeah. But maybe this will be his year. I mean, he's still young. Like you said, he's coming up, fresh, injury free. So, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I agree with you on with both of you with that. Like a lot of times people will say, in the chat or you read in articles, oh, this player, like you both were saying, I seen them working with this player or they've been in the gym. My thing is, to me, that's all well and good what you did in summer league and what you did in working out preseason and this and preseason games. But what matters is when we start the actual season and the wins and loss columns matter. And if you're not making it happen throughout the season and we're not seeing any type of improvement or, where you look like you're being aggressive and want it more, if you taking your game to the next level or some type of next step, then that means nothing to me. I like to see, well, what are you doing in a regular season in real game time situations when we're playing against other Eastern Conference and Western Conference competitors? What are you doing? So that to me is what I'm looking for. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not holding my breath either. I think that's all well and good what he was doing in the gym, what he's been doing, but can that correlate, like Divalak said, in the
Right.
actual games?
Right.
Shout out to Knicks 119 art hashtag sign said, why doesn't Jericho Sims ever spend time in a G League for timing? I don't know. That's a great question. And that was something that I always commend Deuce McBride for, was the fact that he was juggling going back and forth between the G League, playing with the Knicks, back and forth, but he stayed ready. He continued to work on his craft. He stayed ready for when Tibbs. I remember when Tibbs was only giving Deuce 2, 3 minutes, sometimes 4 minutes if he was lucky. And I remember you used to always say, Deuce gonna get 2 minutes, but he gonna chuck up a shot. He gonna chuck up a three, and he was. But he didn't look crazy out there. He was
Right.
ready to play defense, grab a rebound, dive for a ball. He was watching the game to see where he can fit in when Tibbs called his number, and that's what I'm looking for other players. And I know, like D Block's mentioned, him and Jericho came in the league around the same time. So it's just like, you know, again, every player is different. I'm not here to try to compare, but I think that's an excellent question. I said this on our shows plenty of times. I said I don't know why he hasn't gone, because I remember Jarrell said he's not even NBA qualified, and I agree. I remember I was watching the
Yeah.
episode. I said, "Yo, I agree with Jarrell." But and people was in the chat, oh, y'all need to give him a chance, give him a all right, but again, I do think that he should spend some time in a G League to help him out. I think that would help out, it would have helped out his game to go back and forth between both, and help him out get better. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Shout out to Pablo Demas. He says Sims is a 58th pick making 2 million. What pressure? To me, he's already overachieved to remain on this roster this long. Well, I think that's also circumstance. And remember, I was saying this like 2 episodes ago. I feel like Sims has remained on this team because one thing I like with Sims is that physically he's strong. He could contend with other bigs. Them Embiids, those Jokic, those guys who are really big and strong. He can hold it down if he needs to. Now, leaving his feet is another thing. The man's on roller skates sometimes. He's in the air sometimes when he doesn't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that his positioning on the Knicks reminds me of when we had Grimes.
Mm.
And I say that because Grimes was kind of forced into the starting role because we didn't really have another option to fulfill that role. So
Right.
he had to stand in there, and there was pressure on him to have to perform and come in every night and do what he needed to do. He wasn't able to do it. That's another story for another day. But I feel like that's kind of the same with Sims, where to some degree the Knicks saw talent. They liked what they saw. They brought him on this Knicks team. But because, and this is before we even got Isaiah Hartenstein, we just really had Mitchell Robinson. There was really, who else did you have?
Right.
Prior to that, who else we had? We had Noel, we had him, and then he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
But what other, sometimes when you don't really have another few options that you can go to for that positioning, he's the next option behind Mitchell Robinson. So
Right.
he became the third option because Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitch kept overachieving, and they were overshadowing him in his play because there was really nothing there. This is why we're saying we hope to see something more from Sims next season. But I think that yes, he's at a great contract. It's a great deal considering for the Knicks. They love to get players at a deal at a sale price. But I think that yes, there is some pressure as far as when you're a player and you get comfortable on a team, you don't want to necessarily leave that team unless you have your own issues for whatever other reasoning. But now there's this pressure to have to stay. Like Diva Lock said, you got fire under your butt now because now you got the rookies right behind you where you like, damn, I may not be here next year if I don't step up to the plate. They're gonna get rid of me. And it's a business. It's the nature of the league, and this happens regardless.
Right.
But he's been able to stay on this roster with the Knicks for so long because to me, what other options did the Knicks really have bringing somebody in at that price?
Right.
To get someone that and at his position at that center position, and also I think the Knicks will also look in the hope that he would have developed and gotten better throughout the years,
Yeah.
and what Sims didn't. So
Yeah.
that's the whole situation with Jericho Sims.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I think the pressure is to stay on the team. So
Mhm.
yeah, he overachieved and, to remain on the team this long. but I think the pressure is to continue to
Right.
stay on the team because, to your point, Hawk Porty now is in the system, and if they see that Hawk Porty has a higher ceiling than Sims, next year, absolutely right. Sims may be out. Hawk Porty can be in that third center spot, if not the second, depending on how he develops.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yeah.
Shout out to Knicks 100. A GM says Sims is a superior defender and screen setter to Mitch or Randle. Now, the other article that I had read was from Ben Steinar from Sports Illustrated, and he said, in quote, I believe that the Knicks need to add another center to the roster to bolster their depth for a playoff run in 2025. He said NBA legend Dwight Howard could be a good option to have at the end of the team's bench. At 38, Howard still appears to be in great shape and could excel in a role where he averages less than 10 minutes per game. In addition, the eight-time All-Star could be used in different matchups in the postseason, which would help the Knicks. I do want to point out Dwight Howard has played for the Lakers, Orlando, Houston, the Atlanta Hawks, Hornets, the Wizards, and the 76ers. That's a long list of teams he's played for. Um, I don't know. How do you guys feel about maybe bringing in him as a veteran option, as a backup, maybe for the second half of the season when we think about health, longevity of Mitchell Robinson and keeping him healthy? You need a strong option to defend that paint in the playoffs. And when I think about round one, we had an issue with Embiid. Embiid's knee was out of the socket. It was covered up and bandaged. He had it glued together with a bandage. Blood was seeping through the knee. But the way he was playing, the man was limpy and gimpy, was still giving them double, 15, 20, a night. And that's just better offense. And I remember I had called Diva Locks at one point and I said, I think Tibbs needs to make a switch and put OG on Embiid. And when OG was playing that front facing defense, making it hard for Embiid to catch that ball, we saw a shift and a difference where he had to think twice. Now, Mitchell Robinson did an excellent job on him, but he had got hurt, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Embiid had to think twice, but he knew he had Hartenstein's number. Then at some points with the very small window of minutes that Precious Achua had, he made somewhat of a difference as well. And now we fast forward to round two when we played Indiana. We had no answer for Spicy P. OG didn't have an answer for him. Precious Achua didn't have an answer for him. And we didn't have an answer for
Turner.
Turner and the other guard that was lightning fast and was just beating Jalen, whoever he wanted to the basket. But the point I'm trying to make is I think if we had a healthy Mitchell Robinson, who's such a defensive presence that he alters what a player wants to do, whether they have to take a floater, a stop and pop. They may get their shot blocked because Mitchell Robinson, he's like a lion. He's waiting to see what you're gonna do because he has options defensively. His wingspan is there. The basketball IQ is there defensively. But we didn't have that. And we looked so small because Precious Achua, he tried his best, but he was getting out rebounded because he just wasn't tall enough.
Yeah.
I mean, Turner, they were just grabbing the rebounds over him. And I said, look, it looks like me. I was trying to be up there playing around with them. Like, let me get it, y'all. It just looked crazy. So this is why I wondered, should the Knicks maybe go for another veteran option like Vucevic or Dwight Howard to have for that second half of the season into the playoffs, if we have to put maybe Mitch on limited minutes so he can stay healthy throughout round one, round two, get us to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I think we need to think about that, because this is why I asked, and you both answered, we're comfortable with the first half having Sims as a backup, Precious Achua, and then going small ball with Randle, which I think is actually the better option, because also the pace is quicker when you have, if you have Randle at the five, and occasionally you may have to do Precious, maybe sometimes even Josh Hart playing somewhat that 4 and 5 positioning. But when you get to the playoffs, we all three of us can agree it's a different animal. So what do should we go after a player like either of those two to give us that solid protection, who can also give us baskets when we need it, as well as the defensive presence? Or do we just say, we'll just rock out with who we have and hope for the best?
Um, I'll go first. For me, definitely. I mean, Dwight Howard, yeah, he's 38, but he still has something left in the tank. And at this juncture, we know we that top is gonna come, for a center, because as we know, what we have is what we have, and that's not gonna suffice. And I don't think it's gonna carry us, to it'll carry us to the playoffs, but then how well will we do? Um, you know, he's a journeyman. He's been around. He does have that playoff experience. Where he's won, a ring. With, I think, with the Lakers or something. So
Yeah, in 2020.
he has that experience. He's a Taj, but I think he's a step, you know, up a Taj Gibson. I think he has more to give, than Taj, would have given us, or could have given us at this juncture. So I'm all for it, to bring somebody in like that, um, and to step in. I would give him definitely playing time over Sims, me, because of what he can bring. He's still, you know, athletic. He can, run up and down. So I would definitely, give him a look, and hopefully, if he's available, then I'm all for it.
But what about Vujovic? Because he can score. He can do like what Kristaps does for Boston, where he can pull the defender out because he can knock down the three. He can hit free throws. So I think that can be a nice X factor. That can be a nice weapon for the Knicks to have at that big man positioning that we don't have right now. Minus if you have Randall at that positioning. If you bring in someone like him, now you
Yeah,
have a big man who can give you that scoring and can give you those side um, free throw line
yeah,
shots, those easy, quick mid-range pop shots that you can kick it out to him and he can give you a quick bucket. And with confidence he can make that. He can give you the floater with confidence. He can make that, and he has post moves, which most big men don't do now in the league. But he can also shoot the three. So that versatility, offensively, I mean defensively, I know he may not be a Tibbs guy, but my thing is, when you go to a team and they're moving towards championship, you have to get in and fit in and ride the train of where they're going, and you got to work hard and give what they need you to give. That's part of doing your job, no matter what team you go to.
Right.
So if he's a defensive guy, a defensive type coach, and he's looking for that defense, then that's where those other assistant coaches have to come in place and say, this is what we expect from you. This is what we need from you. And you continue to get better each game throughout the season. So I don't think that would be a problem. I think when you're playing with other guys and you see the energy that they're bringing, as this Knicks team does, it becomes infectious. And I think that any guy, whether it's Vujovic or whoever comes over, they'll be like, yo, I got to step it up because these guys are hustling. It's going to make you want to hustle hard and do what you need to do. Because if not, you're going to get the bench. No matter what you could do offensively, if you can't perform defensively, Tibbs is going to put you on that bench. But I mean, hell, we had what was his name that we had for the before he hurt his wrist? Bogdanovich. We had him,
uh,
and he didn't play no damn defense.
Mhm.
So but Vucevic could give you more than Bogdanovich. There's a lot more versatility under his repertoire than him. But I just think that to some degree, either or would be a suitable option for us down the stretch because I think the biggest thing I don't question this Knicks what they can do and how far they can go. I question the health of this team. We saw what they can do, but I think it's can guys stay healthy for 82 games plus?
Right.
Once you finish the regular season, the games have just begun. Now it's the Hunger Games, and it turns into a war of who can do what and who's going to lose gas after the first round, who can withstand. And that's one of the things Jalen Brunson talked about once he received that captain honor of, he said, yeah, it's cool. We got to the first round, second round. He said, my goal is to get out of the second round. We
Right.
know what Ayaka gets to round one and two, but he wants to get out of the second round. So I think either of those two big men, because of what they can bring, and Dwight can give you those much needed rebounds. He can give you the defensive presence and be able to block guys out so other guys can go in and get those rebounds, like your Josh Harts, can go in. So I like either the two. I just thought I was reading that article and wanted to bring them both up.
What's your take on it?
Um, you know, if Dwight Howard is the same player I remember when he was last in the NBA, I do think he could help us. The thing about it is, if Josh Hart is in the rotation, that means Precious is out. There's gonna be one of them is gonna be situational, either Dwight Howard or Precious. It's just not enough minutes to go around. And I think again, if Dwight Howard is who he was the last time I saw him in the NBA, I think he would be a better option for us than Precious defensively. Now,
Mhm.
offensively, unless something has changed, I think he in that same mold as Sims.
Mm.
Yeah, he might be a little better um, offensively, but he really wasn't known for being an offensive player. But one thing that he can do that really kills me with Mitchell Robinson is he can move the ball to the next player. Like if you're not going to do anything with it, at least pass it on and keep the offense moving. Whereas
Mm.
with Mitchell Robinson, and I think Sims as well, when they get it, they got to hold it so that the person who passed it to them can come back to them and
Mhm.
get the ball. And by that time, the defense is rested, has reset. It kind of slows the defense down. So I do think Dwight Howard would be able to do that if he's the same player I mentioned. Vucevic? Now, I don't like Vucevic at the expense of Randle. I don't know
Yeah.
if we're better trading Randle and bringing in. I don't think we're better, I should say, trading Randle and bringing in Vucevic.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
if you have Randle and Vucevic, that changes everything. And even though he may not be a rim protector, shot blocker, we have really good perimeter defenders now. How many players are getting into the key anyway? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it would work. He can pass the ball. He's a true stretch center. He can rebound. Now Randall would have to up his game defensively. You can't have both Randall and Vucevic because even though Vucevic may try, I don't know if his I don't know about his ability. I don't know about his lateral quickness. I don't know. I don't think he's a shot blocker. So as much effort as he wants to put in, I don't know how good he is at it. Though, if you're talking team defense, you just got to hit your spots. You just got to be where you're supposed to be on the rotations, right? One on one. If we need to, we'll send you help. But you got to be where you're supposed to be. But in the offensive end, that makes the Knicks deadly. And I think that's the biggest thing about iHeart. Not that iHeart scored so many points, not
Yeah.
that iHeart you could pass it to him in the post. You had to pay attention to him
Hmm.
and that created space. He can pass the ball. He can hit cutters. It made our offense more dynamic. And Vucevic would do it would be even more dynamic because he can shoot. He can hit the three. There'll be much more space in the key with Vucevic. So if we could pull that off, where we're keeping Randle, and I don't know who we would have to give up. Somebody in the chat, shout out to the chat, mentioned maybe we can give now Vucevic. No, it's Chicago, right? We're not talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, Chicago.
Okay, that's different. Then who went to Washington? There was a center that went to Washington. That was from New Orleans. That was the New
Um,
Orleans center last year. I forget his name. Somebody in the chat remind us. He went to Washington. So, and he would be similar as well in terms of what he can do for the Knicks. And the Knicks have Washington's first round pick.
right.
So they can give that back to them, and maybe that could help get that center, the New Orleans. Is it not Nurkic? Because Nurkic is Phoenix, right? Valachunas.
I
Thank
was
you,
gonna
Knicks
say,
19
Yeah.
art hashtag Valachunas. But going back to Vucevic, he would change everything, Vucevic, if we're able to get him.
yeah, I agree. And I think Vucevic or any of the centers we've named so far, I would want them on the floor with Randall,
Yeah.
like with the roster makeup that we have now, because I just think it would make them such a great combo of a team, even stronger, as a Knicks team.
Yeah.
Moving on to some upcoming Knicks openings for the 2024-2025 season. So Knicks Media Day is Monday, September 30th. That's the day they'll hold their media day. Then following that, the New York Knicks training camp is going to be on that Tuesday, October 1st. And I know Stefan Bondi of the New York Post reported that the New York Knicks are going back to their tradition of holding training camp at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. Then the Knicks roll out with preseason. So they start off Sunday, October 6th. The Knicks will be playing at Sharp against the Hornets at 5. Then they'll be playing again on Wednesday, October 9th against the Wizards. That'll be at home at 7:30. Then they'll be playing Sunday, October 3rd, at home against the Timberwolves at 7. Again on Tuesday, October 15th, at home against Charlotte at 7:30. And then they'll finish off preseason Friday, October 18th against Washington, at Washington at 7 p.m. And then the Knicks kick off their first regular season game in Boston. That'll be their ring ceremony. I really want the Knicks to be able to take that win. That'll be Tuesday, October 22nd. What are your expectations for the Knicks next season, and how many wins do you have them winning? Let's start off with Queen first.
I have them winning between 50 and 55. But it's going to be tough because the Eastern Conference is better.
Yeah,
And it's going to be a dogfight every night. So I would say still 50 to 55, but it's going to be tough. If there's any injuries, if there's um,
Mm.
if the chemistry doesn't get right, if we get off to a slow start, we could be probably 50-49. And it's not just who you are on paper, but it's how you're able to execute and how that paper is able to come alive, so to speak.
Mm.
And right now on paper, we're as good as anybody in the East. I still would put Boston ahead of us because they won it and they have the experience and they know what it takes. But when the season starts, we're coming off the paper and you gotta actually do it. So I'm gonna say 50 to 55, but it I wouldn't say that this team underachieved if it was 48-49, only because the Eastern Conference is stacked. Um, Miami's gonna have something to say about Indiana's gonna have something to say about this. Cleveland is gonna have something to say about this. So I say 50-55, but this team could be better and have less wins just because of how much tougher the Eastern Conference is.
but where, before I get to Diva Locks, if they get 48 to that 55 win range, where does that place them, do you think, on the standings in the Eastern Conference?
The Knicks are definitely top four. I don't see them unless the bottom falls out, unless um, there's injuries that we weren't able to make up for. I It's definitely 1 through 4, and I would put them two. Um, but I will say that to me, there's not a lot of difference between separation, at least now on paper, between the Knicks, Philly, and people sleeping on Milwaukee because of the season they had last year.
Yeah.
Those to me, those three teams plus Boston, those are the top four teams in the East. And the Knicks are going to have to separate themselves from Philly and Milwaukee to get that number 2 spot or even the number 1 spot. And I think they can, but so much has to fall in place for us to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Evelux?
Um, yeah, for me, I'm gonna go 50 to like I'm gonna go one up to 56. Um, Again, we've seen what they did last season, but this is a whole new season. It's a clean slate. Um, Barring, even you could say even barring injuries, that's still, guys can get, healthy down the stretch, or they may get injured early and then come back. Um, I'm gonna go again with that range, only because of our makeup. We just, added, Mikal. So that he has to get acclimated because the chemistry's already been formed, the continuity's already. So now they have to, incorporate him. I mean, he'll do it, which he'll be there. He'll get there. I don't think it's a matter of him, being able to catch up, and he's gonna fit in seamlessly. So that's why I put them at like between 50 and 56. Because of the makeup of the guys, everybody's back. Yeah, minus Hartenstein, Steen, I always botch his name up, but minus him. Um, and that's the only thing, like, with the center, so I think we're gonna definitely miss that part. So I should maybe take it down a notch, but I'm gonna just remain hopeful, because of the other guys that can fit in, and just the positions that Randall could slide in, the X, Y, and Z. So that's why I'm gonna stay at that number. Um, and yeah, I think they're top four. I think Indiana falls, below them. Um, I think Miami definitely is like a 6. I will put Indiana, even above Miami because of they've been there. Their continuity's there. Their guys are still there. So I think the Knicks is definitely a top four, because of their roster and just their bench.
Yeah.
You got guys that were starters, and now they back to their bench, so they have that experience. So that's why I would put them where I have them placed at. So yeah, I'm gonna go 50 to 56.
Yeah, that's a good number. I have the Knicks. If as long as the Knicks remain healthy, if we can get at least, I've said at least 60 games from OG Anunoby, we can have a healthy, for the most part, Mitchell Robinson, Randle, as well as even Jalen Brunson. People are not really speaking about him, but and I'm not going to with that, he could remain healthy,
Right.
as well as your Josh Hart, your Devos, and Mikal Bridges, who doesn't sustain injuries, but there's always the devil's always trying the Knicks and trying to curse us and other people. But I think if the Knicks can remain healthy, and also if they can somehow figure out, and I know Diva was just harping on this, is that I know we don't have Isaiah Hartenstein, but if the Knicks can figure out a way to learn to kick the ball out when whoever gets the ball in the center, not even necessarily on the post, but if they can bring it around that free throw line area and kick it out, that's where we were successful. And if they can get to cutting and guys can cut, remember we used to be like, yo, why do the Knicks steer from what works?
Mhm.
And when they had games where guys were cutting, those role players were cutting, and Hartenstein was able to kick the ball out. Because remember, a lot of times Isaiah Hartenstein was like, he was having to head nod guys to be like, yo, cut. Like, I'm waiting on you. I'm gonna get you the ball, but
Right.
cut to the basket. And guys were still standing at the top of the key. But if they cannot rely on just standing in the wait to get that ball and do their thing, that's gonna come. But if the Knicks move without the ball and like we incorporate cutting more, and then when guys, whoever it is, get that ball near the free throw line in that paint area and can dump it out and kick it, and maybe we can play that unselfish ball like we were playing. I have the Knicks at around 60 wins.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
I have them at 60 wins because the Knicks, they were there again, and they proved it without the with the injuries that were abound for the team. But when the Knicks were doing that, I said, wow, like they were hard to stop because prior to the Knicks doing that, the Knicks would fall victim to that, where teams will be passing the ball around. The Knicks were trying to chase wherever the ball was going because teams were just moving the ball, quick passes. But we now have become the team to do that. But if the Knicks can get to, like, I want to see Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, I want to see guys like that cut into the basket and moving without the ball. And whoever can catch that ball, whether it's Randle, hell, even sometimes um Jalen, I would like to see him, you know, throw a nice bounce pass or find Mitchell Robinson with the lob, and or if Mitchell Robinson, if he just has to turn around, kick it out to the guy at the standing at the shortest point in the 3-point line, and we can kick off a shot like that. But if guys can move without the ball, I think the Knicks will be able to get at least 60 wins
Do you
if they
think
incorporate that.
do you think moving without the ball is going to be a little more difficult with Mitchell Robinson's guy in the key? Not necessarily around the perimeter, but I mean like in the key. Other than like an alley oop, it might be a bit of a challenge.
It is, and that's a great point because Mitch doesn't move from that area. And then sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes Mitch is in the way because he's not sure where to stand when it's on the offensive end. So he's like, he knows where to get positioning to get that second, third opportunity of a rebound, that offensive rebound.
Right.
But sometimes when guys are trying to not even necessarily make their move, but maybe someone's setting a screen and they trying to have another guy go around, Mitch sometimes is in the way. And I'm like, he's creating a ball of clutter because now the defense is like, well, I'm following him, but I'm reading what's happening at the same time. So I do think that will be hard, but I think that, I don't know, maybe Mitch, they need to figure out a way to maybe have him slide out sometimes, maybe at that shorter end of the 3-point line, or come up,
Mhm.
to kind of bring up his defender at times and then maybe have a cutter or two going around. I don't know. I think that's where Tibbs and his coaching is going to have to come into play. But I agree with what you said earlier, where sometimes that small ball is going to be to our advantage because the pace will move quicker.
And
Because,
what are the things you're talking about?
right, when we had Hartenstein on the floor, the pace was quicker. When Mitchell was in, it was a little slower. It wasn't super slow, but it wasn't as quick of a pace. And then I think with pressure, sometimes it was quick, and sometimes it was a little stagnant. And with him, I need him to, if you standing right near the basket, I need Precious just to put the ball in the hoop.
Okay.
Not miss those easy
Okay.
free throws that he was and dunks or layups that he should have made. So I think those are the things that I agree with you. The ball movement, it may slow down when you have Mitch on the floor, but I think that's something that we're gonna, and maybe Sims could figure out a way to sometimes kick the ball out with a nice chest pass and make the right decision with the passing and kicking it out to whomever, and that can keep the flow moving. So,
Absolutely.
but that's a great point.
That's the thing. Even if they're not scoring threats, can you pass and keep the offense moving?
Right,
That's what I would like to see from Sims and Mitchell Robinson this upcoming season. Just keep it moving. Keep it moving so the defense has to keep rotating.
right. Yeah, I agree. And then yeah, so last point I wanted to make up was on Randall.
Mm.
So as we all know, Randall's eligible to sign as much as a 4 year, 181.5 million extension. That was as early as earlier this month, August 3rd. As we all know, the Knicks have yet to extend Randle. Right now for the Knicks, and we were talking about this before we went live. I was saying how for the Knicks, it's a little bit of wait and see approach. And I think with Randle, he's okay with that wait and see. He's not, no, either party is in a rush. And I think part of that is that it doesn't look like it's a great free agent market um, for the teams that have no cap space for next summer, right? Which will leave Randle to have to pretty much pick up his player option after next season. There are a few teams that are expected to have some cap room for next summer. That's Brooklyn at 49.5 million, Houston Rockets at 30.6 million, the Washington Wizards at 25.2 million, and then the San Antonio Spurs at 23.2 million. Now, Fred Katz from The Athletic said the conundrum for the Knicks is that they're not going to get the maximum value for Randle in the trade market. He said, I don't believe that there is a team in the NBA that will value the 3-time All-Star more than the Knicks do. My question to you both is, why do you think the Knicks won't get maximum value for Randle in the trade market?
Hmm.
Because I thought that was a great point that he brought up, and that I think Randle's a phenomenal player, and I think we all can agree with that. But why won't teams offer as much for Randle as what the Knicks would pay Randle out? Is a question, is a real solid question. Like you really think about like, well, why? And I remember like Diva Lux and I was kind of talking about this one time, and you kind of brought this up. You was like, I don't think teams will offer that much. And I was like, but why? Is it because he's been in the league now running on 10 years? You know, what is that about that teams won't offer that trade bait that the Knicks can be like if they wanted to, which I'm not saying to all in the chat, I'm all for keeping Randle. He's a pivotal player for this team. But what I'm thinking is like, but why wouldn't, is it that they haven't seen enough, that even like the Knicks front office hasn't seen enough to see what Randle could do postseason, because unfortunately he sustained injuries and he's not an injury prone player. He's had dirty plays done to him, that's he sustained injuries. But why wouldn't other teams in this huge league of a National Basketball Association, why wouldn't any teams want to offer the Knicks a high maximum value for Randle when you know the numbers that he can put up? He's physically strong. He's a beast
Okay.
down low. He's a workhorse. The basketball IQ is good. He's absolutely grown from just a few seasons ago, like even mentally, not just his game, but he used to be like a
Yeah.
hothead. He would
Right.
argue with the refs. He would, it was commentary. The game was still in play. Randall's having a sidebar with the ref. I thought he was on the bench. I said, wait a minute, he's still in the game. It's 5-on-4 because he's having a whole powwow about why the ref didn't call the foul. But I'm like, but why? And not, I don't feel like the Knicks are stuck with Randall, but I said, wow, why wouldn't any teams want to offer a high trade value to say, nah, we want him. Here's what we're willing to give you. And where it seems like teams will want to somewhat kind of go at a lower rate. I don't want to say low ball, but more of a lower rate than what the Knicks will be looking and what he's worth. Why do you both maybe think that that could be with Randall?
Well, one of the keys that you said, I mean, maybe because they haven't seen
Oh, she cut out.
Oh,
She froze.
you want me to go till she come back?
Yeah.
Um, I think that you're not going to ever get max value for a really, really good player. Anytime you like, say, a team was going to trade Giannis or the Joker, and I'm not saying Randall is in that class. Randall, any of these top players, you're going to get back draft picks, young players. Rarely are you going to trade one all-star for another all-star of similar value. Like that never usually happens. You usually get back a up and coming player who has the potential to be a star,
Right.
and some draft picks, right? So Randle is not going to get you marketing. We could just keep marketing. You know what I mean? Randle is not going to get you um Giannis. Maybe if he becomes available, but you would have to add more. So I think part of it is that he is really good, and so it's hard to match his value if you're going to trade him. You're basically going to get back a rising star and
Mhm.
draft picks, number one. Number two, I think Katz mentioned it, or it could have been another article, is that there's a lot of sentiment, at least in the media, that Randall is not a that he's a specific fit on certain teams. I don't see that. Um, but they're saying that he wouldn't fit on a lot of teams, and that could be another reason why there wouldn't be a huge market for him. He's not really a stretch four. He can hit the three, but take away that season in the bubble where he shot 41%, he
Right.
shoots 33% or something like that. So he's not really a stretch four in today's game. So that could be a reason. And I think another reason could be the salary cap.
Yeah.
You gotta, you're gonna pay him 40 million or whatever. If you're gonna max him out, you better be darn sure that he can be a top two player on your team, because it's gonna be really hard for you to um get other players if he's taking up that much of your salary cap. So I do think the new collective bargaining agreement kind of shrinks his market um a little bit. And what's not being said, which I think is underneath all of this, well, I should say I wonder if there are teams that don't believe in Randall's numbers. I wonder. I wonder if there are people like, yes, 25, 10-4, 10-5, but can you really win with this guy? You
Right.
know, um, this, even though he's putting up these numbers. No one has said that. I just wonder if that's part of the equation as well.
That's a great point. And you know, Diva Lots, when we were talking about the whole Jalen Brunson getting the captain position, and she was saying, I don't think that there's a slight on Randall,
Mhm.
which I said it can't be because Randall went on the podcast and said he never really wanted to be that captain role, that number one guy. He was more comfortable being the B option, number two option, sometimes even the 3C player
Mhm.
option. And he's comfortable with that. Now, I did say initially when Jalen Brunson first came, there seems to be a little bit of pushback from Randall from my view. It seemed like he was kind of like, who's this guy that came in here? He's shining bright. He's doing his thing. And rightfully so, Jalen Brunson's play overshadowed Randall. But somehow they figured out a way to play together. And we saw what can happen with them both playing together. Right. And it became successful because in the beginning, what was happening was when Jalen Brunson first got to the Knicks, they were playing individual ball. Randall was scoring 40, 45 points a night. Jalen Brunson would give you 35, 40, 46 points a night, but we weren't winning. So I said, what good is you giving us all those points if we're not getting a W at the end of the night? But they figured out a way to play together, them two, and then as well as incorporating the team together to get us those wins. But one thing that I mentioned was exactly what you just said, and I've sent this to Diva Locks, is that I think with Julius Randle, his positioning on the Knicks reminds you of like when we had Carmelo Anthony, not comparing the
Mhm.
two players and their play, the way they play. When Melo was on the Knicks, he didn't really have help. It was just basically him. You did at one point have Amari Stoudemire, but you had that one main guy and you had the supporting role players as the cast there. Fast forward, the Knicks got Julius Randle when no one else wanted to come here, right?
Mhm.
So I commend him for that. He came here, he didn't really have no one else. It was just him carrying a dead, horrible, weighted, deadbeat team. And then finally, behind the scenes, you had Dolan letting go of some of all this power and allowing Leon Rose to come in. Changes came in. It was like and lean on me when Mr. Clark started making changes in the school. That's what Leon Rose did. He said, we are making changes up in this bad boy. We are not doing that anymore. He made changes. We see what's happening. And I like I was saying to Divalox, I don't think that it was a slight, and she agreed on Randle because he doesn't want to do that. But I think that exactly what you were just saying, Queen, that I think as an organization, sometimes you'll look at a player like that, like his tenure with us has been here a long time, but he hasn't really brought us to the next level. His game has, but you have to look at both, like what has he done for this team, even now with the help. And it's unfortunate with the injuries, we haven't really been able to see what Randall could do for us in the playoffs.
Right.
But I think that that's part of, to me, why the Knicks are also on a wait and see with Randall, because it's like they know what he can do, but what's gonna happen with you here with OG, with you here with Mikal Bridges and Jalen Brunson. And I know some people may say, oh, but the Knicks gave OG all that money. Yeah, they did. And just like when they brought him from Toronto, they knew what they were getting into with him being injury prone as well. It's not like they didn't know this, they knew this. But I think with Randall, he's been with this Knicks team for so long. And part of it, I will say, no, he didn't have any help. But this Knicks team hasn't gone far in the playoffs with just him. We haven't gone, you know, um, towards championship contention. And now that we are, I think if you're a front office personnel, you would be like, well, damn, we haven't even been able to see what he can do for us in the playoffs because unfortunately he suffered injuries. And you want to be able to see that. Like, I really hope and pray that Randall could stay healthy and be able to show us what he can do in the playoffs, because that's where we want to see. That's what where it matters, and we want to see can um, Jalen have that help in the postseason. But I'll kick it back to you for Diva Lots because I know you had went out when you were trying to answer why we don't think teams are able to offer the Knicks high maximum value for Randall on the trade market.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear Queen's whole answer, but my thing is because um I think that like they don't know what he can or how far he can take them. Um, but he's an all-star. We know that his numbers, what he puts up, but like, will that carry us to a ring? So I think maybe that's could be some hesitation on like other teams and organizations and front office because there's the uncertainty with him and then how far he's gonna carry us. Um, is he that guy to bring us to raise that banner? So that's the only thing I can come up with because he's an awesome play. His game has elevated. He's a double guy. He's physical. He's not afraid to play down low and make the contact. So why? That's the only thing I can come up with. I hope we can keep them because myself, I would love to see that tandem, go to work. Brunson and just the makeup we have now,
Right.
McCall, OG, Mitch. I'm excited to see like where they can go, and I believe that they can, raise that banner this year. So I definitely would love them to sign him. You know, I'm quite sure he's fully healthy. Yeah, he had enough time, to, get himself right physically, mentally, and so forth. So I would love, Julius to be that core guy and help them, go there. But I think maybe a lot of front offices there's that uncertainty, like they don't know if this is that guy. So that's my take. That's the only thing I could come up with.
Yeah. And can I add to that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Particularly with the collective bargaining agreement, you
Mm,
know, if we give the flexibility we get with Brunson signing his extension is another year or two where we can pivot if things don't work out. If you sign Randall to his extension, you're still under the second cap, the the second tier, but you only have 10 players under contract. So once you sign the 4 more players, you're probably going to go over the second tier. And it's possible they're saying, do we want to lock this team in to the second tier where it'd be difficult for us to pivot when we're not sure if
Mhm.
Randle could perform in the playoffs? And I'm not saying he can't. Remember the first year he was by himself. The
Yeah.
second year he was not 100%, and then the third year he didn't even play. So I'm not saying, and they're probably not saying he can't.
Mhm.
They might be saying we don't know because of all of these factors. So do we want to lock ourselves in just yet where
Mhm.
we can't pivot? Let's maybe wait. Let's see if it does translate before we, before we lock it in. That could be their train of thought.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking as well. I also too, I really would like to see everyone on this Knicks team, but especially Randall, be able to win a championship here. He's been here so long. I can see the shift mentally and the hunger. Even watching him in the playoffs, him sitting there, you could tell he was itching to get in the game because he was like, damn, I wish, you could just see him sitting out there. He looking like this, like, coach, for me, he ready to get in the game. He was like on his tippy toes, like, y'all need me to go put on the suit up or whatever and get in. He wanted to get in that game badly. And
Right.
Randall, I like that all the players on the Knicks are locked in and the focal point is the same to not only just before the championship to get better, to lock in, beat the teams you're supposed to beat the teams that are challenging, because every team is beatable, as Diva Locks always says. Every team in this league is beatable.
Mhm.
But to really come together and the way this team fights and the difference that we've seen in this team where this team doesn't get blown out by teams. They can be down by 20, 25 and come back and surprise team. And next thing you know, the Knicks win games. They continue to fight until the clock is out and the game is over. And that's what I love about this team. And even sometimes where, we were talking about some things our last episode that we want to see the Knicks kind of adjust and tweak. And one of them was like the slow starts, the
Yes.
slow third quarters, guarding that perimeter a lot better,
Mhm.
not watching. You in the playoffs, you can't watch as Josh Hart did campaign and was watching go, wow, look at that shot he's putting up. And he did it 3 times in a row. And you watched him. This is before you got the rib bruise. So I don't want to hear it. You watched him 3 times and did this and watched the ball go in the hoop. So watching on the defense, communicate, talk to each other on the defensive end. I want to see that as well. But just the Knicks doing what they do best and sticking to what works. Don't revert back to, I don't know, whatever else they're doing. I don't know if Tibbs is telling them to do something else, but he can't be because what's working is well, does them well and serves them well. But then the Knicks have this thing where sometimes they drift off and we like, well, why did they do what they did the last game?
Right.
You playing a totally different game this game. Not
Right.
sure why. You're trying something new. Stick to the same recipe.
Right.
Do what works for you, and trust me, you will be successful throughout the season. So they'll address those things as well. But I really want to see Randall win a championship, and I know he's just as hungry as Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, all that the fellas are on this next team to win.
For sure. For
I
sure.
did want to point out a comment I saw that this is what I've been saying. Shout out to Cody. He said, speaking of Randall, he showed, but it was a mixture of opposing blitzes with no help, which was what Queen was just saying, like the ATL series, an injury in the concurrent playoffs. If he didn't get undercut by Jaime Jaquez, which I've been saying, he would have been there last year. And I
Yeah.
had to keep emphasizing that a few episodes ago when I kept talking about how Jaime literally said, I'm going to rip his arm out the socket. Poor Randall's arm was dangling
Mm.
from the blade. And people, they forget that. I'm like, Randall's not injury prone. He's and what's funny is if you're a true Knicks fan, you'll realize both of his injuries came from two Miami Heat players. Heat was last year, and then the year before that was Bam
Mhm.
when he messed up his ankle. So, and then, of course, when Mitchell Robinson had to deal with
And be
uh Embiid
Yeah.
with his game, but in the playoffs. But it's unfortunate, but that's what I was trying to get at with Randle. People have to realize Jaime Jaquez caused Randle to have that injury, being all rough. I don't know what that was about, but Q Burrow brother said Randall won't get all those shots now. Pass the peas like they used to say. Salute to Ron, that's still Knicks fan. Shout out to Ron. He said, "What's happening, Knicks family? Salute to the chat. Salute to the Queen staff, Diva Locks and Lady and the Chef. Salute Ron, part of that replay gang. To J Boogie as well. And my last question for you both was, and you both pretty much kind of answered it, but it was basically, do you think the Knicks are looking to see how Randall fits in with Brunson, OG, and Mikel before offering him his extension?
Mm.
And if he doesn't fit in or play to the front office expectations, do the front office say, let's make him a trade piece? Or let's just kind of play it out and see where this goes in a year or two? And I know Steph kind of pretty
Yeah.
much answered that already. But yeah, for me, I think they're on a wait and see. Let's see what Randall does. And I'm very confident that this front office knows what Randall could give you. But I think it's a matter of health longevity and can he be available for us in the postseason? And if so, which I'm very confident in claiming it, he will. How will Randall perform in the postseason for this Knicks squad? Because I really think the only player that, to me, that's really not in question what you're gonna get from him offensively. And the only time I questioned him, and I was a little like, "Why are you doing that?" was Jalen Brunson when he was trying to play hero ball, and he did that in round one. He did it in round two a little bit as well, but where he was just coming down and just bringing the ball up and just chucking up shots. I said, you playing with four of the guys. You do realize that you have options to throw passes, and he just wasn't. So I think with Randall, they want to see what can he do in the postseason and what can he add to this team in the playoffs, and which is going to be needed. I can say I said in the postseason, I was like, man, this is where they miss Randall because we needed another offensive threat. And thank God we had OG Anunoby and Dante DiVincenzo when he stepped up, and Josh Hart, the way they were able to step up. But now having Mikal Bridges, who's another elite shooter, helps. But Randall is another critical piece. So I think right now they're in the wait and hold and wait and see, and no one's in a rush. Randall's still making money regardless. I don't know if he's still in where was he, in Taiwan or wherever he was in Hong Kong. He's been in Asia for a while. I don't know if Randall's back. Maybe he is now. But yeah.
I would say, oh, go ahead, Diva.
Oh, no, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say I do think I don't know if they're saying does he fit with a particular player, but I think, to your point, how does this team perform with him? Like that January team that went 12-2, I believe it was. I mean, that it's hard to say then because that was iHeart and not Mitch. But, you know, is was that a one-time thing, or is that could that be our ceiling as a team? So yeah, I do think they're looking to see how this entire team fits together.
Right.
And if it doesn't fit, Randall may be the odd person out if they feel like they need to pivot, one, because he didn't go to Villanova, and two, well, I shouldn't say that, but probably because he's not the easiest piece to move, but he's not under contract yet. He's due for an extension. They haven't signed him to one, so it'll probably be uh, a little easier to move him. though fit and all of those things we talked about in the beginning would become an issue. Second, though, I don't think you move him in the beginning of the season. This is what's going to make this hard for the Knicks. If you see it's not working, are you going to move him at the deadline? Then that makes this season a wrap as far as winning the championship,
I
because you're
agree.
going to need time to gel with
Yeah.
whoever else you bring in. So I think that either you sign him to an extension before the season, or he opts in. He has the option to opt in, or you just gonna have to. He's just gonna have to be an unrestricted free agent. Like, I don't know if you could sign him, trade him in the middle of a season, and still hope to have championship aspirations for this season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea either. You can't. You would have to wait till the season's over.
But then you risk maybe losing him for nothing. Though I think he's CAA, you should have an inkling of if he were to get to free agency, is he upset and we risk losing him because we didn't sign him to an extension, or is he okay going to free agent and we'll still have a good shot? Like you got to get something from that connection
Oh, for sure.
to know, um, to have a heads up going into free agency.
Mm. So do you think he'll take less? Because even Mikhail's talking about, following in Brunson's footsteps. So maybe Randall adopt that, that attitude as well. Because again, it's for, the goal, I guess everybody's goal is to raise that banner and win a ring before it's all said and done. I mean, so do you think he will, or be willing to take less?
I hope so. I know for me, that was one of the things that I was saying. I hope that Randall would adopt that Jalen Brunson, decision of taking less and for the betterment of, the trajectory of where this Knicks organization is going, and that's a championship. And I think, I don't know if it was Parrish or who said in the chat, Randall saw what this team could do without him there. So I think that also for me, because remember, before we got Brunson, Randall was a little frustrated at times because guys wasn't ready for the pass. They were in the spots they were supposed to be. That was another reason why that added to his frustration throughout when he was playing on the Knicks. So now with this team gelling and they're better and the continuity is there, he sees also with him not there, like, okay, well, they can handle it. So now with me there, he should be able to fit in seamlessly. And I think Randall will fit as long as we don't do too much ISO ball with him and we're able to move the ball like you both have been saying, then yes. But if it comes down to too much, you dribbling the air out the ball and we're wasting too much of the shot clock, then that can be a problem at times, which I don't see us doing because he's leaned away from that, not doing that as heavy as he used to.
Mhm.
But I was saying that I hope when Brunson decided to take less, that was one of the things I was saying when we were talking about Randall. I said I hope Randall could do the same thing and just say, you know, one of the things I was pointing out, Queen, was I looked at every player that the Knicks have on this roster that they've signed, and this front office has done a damn good job at every player that had an asking price. The Knicks have gotten them under their asking price. Everyone, I mean, from Josh, Dante, OG, everyone's gotten under. So the Knicks have still been able to save money and negotiate and get guys under what they were asking. So I'm sure what Randall is definitely going to be under what he's asking, but hopefully Randall could come to an agreement with them and say, I'm willing to take a little less because I see that this team is moving in a direction of championship. And they are. And like I've heard you say this on your show, Queen, that championship teams, it takes some time before they win. Kevin Garnett was just talking about that on his podcast. He said it took us some time to win that championship. He said, and to be honest, I think the only team that's really in that I forget what was the word he used, that's in ahead of the Knicks. He said is the Celtics. He said, but the Knicks are right there. And he was just basically saying how with him and playing with, he said it took us time to get there, and it takes teams time to get there. And I've heard you say that, like it took Boston a few tries before they got it, Denver a few tries before they got it. You know, Cleveland, it takes teams time. So the Knicks are, they're moving in that trajectory towards championship. And maybe with Randall seeing that, like maybe he could see the light at the end of the tunnel, like, damn, this team is actually going places. We're not the same old regime that we used to be, that he'll be willing to say, you know what, I want to be here. I'm willing to take a little less because I want that ring. You know, the money's one thing, but the ring is what players really want. You want to be able to call yourself a champion. So I'm hoping he'll be able to take less money.
Do you think the fan base would look at him negatively if he doesn't? Because remember what Brunson did this time around, Randall did the first time around. Like
Right.
he signed an extension when he could have waited a year and got like 200 and something. I think it was 200 and something million. He signed his extension. You think if he decides, you know what, I'm not going to do that again. Do you think the fan base will look at him negatively?
I don't think so, because usually most fans, I see most true New York Knicks fans will say, like, don't pocket watch. You know, these guys got to feed their family. It's a business. And that's how I look at it from both standpoints, from the NBA as well as the player. Like, just like quickly, the Knicks couldn't match this extra 7 million he was asking for. He said, well, I'm out of here. It's a business. He had to go ahead and get out of there. So I get it from that standpoint. Like, it's from both parties, from the player standpoint as well as from the team and the organization
Right,
standpoint. So I don't think that true Knicks fans, and if they do, people are just being haters and finding something to hate on Randall about.
right,
But
right,
I think that, you know, we can't look at it like that. And not even just from a pocket watching standpoint, but it's just like he already did them that solid. And I see Pablo Demas was just saying what you were just saying about how he already gave them a discount before. If Randall already did that, maybe he doesn't want to. And hey, he doesn't have to. You know, I'm just hoping that maybe he can see, well, damn, this team is moving. They're right there. And I want a championship so bad versus me having to go to another team who may be in the running, you know, or probably won a championship before, but maybe he's like, you know, you got to fit in. And, you know, it's not to say it can't happen the following year on another team for him, but I'm hoping that Randall will say, I want to win one here in New York,
mhm,
you know. And I always think about when Randall, he said, New York, we here. I'm waiting for him to say that when we get to the Eastern Conference Finals and the championship. But I just would like him to be able to win it here, and I'm hoping that he can see that in the long run and say, you know what, let's come to some kind of agreement because I want to win a ring here. I've been here most of my career, you
right.
know, and this is where I want to win. So I'm hoping that that's what can help him kind of alter, you know, but I don't think the Knicks, the fans will look at it negatively. Like, and if they do, like I said, you can't. I mean, it's a business from both standpoints, from the player side as
Right.
well as the team side.
Yeah. Fred Katz did give an option, and so I'm pretty sure the Knicks and their crack cap savvy staff already knows this, but he talked about Randall opting into the last year of his contract. I think it's 30 or 32 million, and then signing an extension off of that. And that will still give the Knicks the same 2 years of flexibility they have now. And then he could still get his money, but it'll be like 1 year, um, one or maybe even 2 years down the line. So I'm pretty sure that the Knicks are available, aware of that option as well.
Nice. Yeah. Um, Queen was asking, do you think the fans will look at Randall negatively if he doesn't? Let me rewind. She explained how Randall already gave the Knicks. He was able to take a discount, gave them a discount before and took less before Brunson did it. So she was asking, do you think if he doesn't do that with this extension, will the fans look at him in a negative light because he's basically will say like, no, I'm trying to get my full payout and I'm not willing to give a discount. I said I don't think that they would, and I think because I've seen how a lot of fans have said we shouldn't pocket watch players, and I gave quickly as an example how he was looking for that extra 7 million. The Knicks didn't want to give that, so he had to move it, and walk away. And I get it's a business standpoint from both ends, from the player and the organization. So I don't know what's your take on that.
Well, fans are finicky. They love you when you're winning. As long as you winning, they will ride with you and they'll love you. But that's a tough one. I think some fans, I say yes because you know fans they want you on at a discount because you know they don't care. Like, listen here, some fans may feel you making a lot anyways. I think fans will, but me personally, I wouldn't because it's a business. We don't know how his makeup as far as setting up his family according to Brunson. So he's doing what's best for his family, not so much as the fans. So, and I think the fans will be, but the fans they feel, oh, you should do what Brunson did, and well, he's not Brunson. We don't know what's his makeup is, so, but I think fans, for the most part, they probably will, because they feel he should have taken, less, um, because like I said, when you're winning, it's all good, but when you're not, now, boo, you get the ugly stares and the boos and this. So I think fans will because they probably feel that he should have taken, or should have did what Brunson did. So me personally, I say yeah.
I think there will. I agree. I think there's going to be some fans
Oh yeah,
on him. Um, I think it might be even though. Some fans
yeah,
that understand it, and some fans that's like that's killing them.
yeah, for sure.
Well,
And
yeah, that's all I had for the Knicks segment for today. As usual. So we'll still be watching to see what they do with Randle as far as signing him. Evaluated next month. In September, they're gonna reevaluate him, and then that's when we'll kick off media day, and then preseason. So we'll see how the Knicks look there. We'll all be tuned in for those games as well. So yeah, I'll still be watching. I know as you both will still be watching for that as
Mm,
well.
for sure, for sure. Well, this is my exit. I'll still be listening to you all while I finish cleaning up. So I could get updated on what's going on with the New York Liberty. But it was a pleasure being on the show. Lady and the Chef, your ability to host the show is just off the chain. Um, it's real natural. Um, and that's what you want. You want guests to come on and be like, "Yo, this was a good experience. I
Right.
think I'm gonna come back." So kudos to you, Diva Locks, your takes. Yeah, yeah. We'll we'll do some more things together as the season approaches.
for sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
for sure, Queen. You always invited. And I'll be back on Mondays. I know you asked me like you asked Sherelle. You said, where you been at?
Well, Queens Court will start back up in the fall. It would be nice if we can have an all female panel. If we can get that commitment on Mondays, that would be great. If not, it'll just be a mixed panel. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to Queens Court um on Nothing But Knicks Network. Shout out to Sim.
Yeah, same. We'll make it happen. I know both Ebony and BX Chris are real active on X, so
Yeah.
I know they'll be down. Just gotta reach out to Tsunami, and then we could probably
Oh,
even get Margaret Edwards on and to
nice,
join as well. So
nice.
yeah, I'm looking forward to those and they do really well. People like to hear the all women's panel as well.
Yeah,
So
for real. That would be great. All right. I'll be listening in the background. Shout out to the chat. I'll see y'all next time.
all right, shout out to you, Queen. Shout out to Queen. Love her takes. Super happy she finally got to join us on the show. So we're gonna really quickly just go over what's been going on with the New York Liberty. The Liberty pretty much snapped an 8-game winning streak. They lost to the Connecticut Sun yesterday, 72-64. Not the best playing game. Wasn't happy with Jonquel Jones and what she was doing on the floor. It was a lot of laziness defensively. Uh, First quarter score was 20-25. Second quarter, Connecticut outscored the Liberty 20-13. Third quarter was 19-14. Fourth quarter was 13-12. Just wasn't the Liberty's best playing game. It's okay though. The Liberty is still in first place. They're sitting at 25-5. They've only lost 5 games so far this season. They're still sitting at first in the league. They've already clinched a playoff run, so that's amazing right there. Connecticut's sitting in at 2, and then you got Minnesota at 3. Seattle's at 4. The Vegas Aces are sitting at 5. And then you got Chicago and 8, and they're barely sitting in 8. And because Atlanta's been winning their last few games. They lost their last one, but they're right on their heels. And then you got Indiana Fever at 7. So my thing is when you have teams like the Chicago Sky, the Indiana Fever, the Phoenix Mercury, those type of teams you have to be careful for because a team like the Liberty, you're in first, but that means nothing when you get into the playoffs. One of those teams could wipe you right out. And if I'm not mistaken, in the WNBA, the playoffs, I think it's the best out of 3. I don't think it's the best out of 5, at least the first round, which is, I hate it, but that's the way it is. Hopefully they change the format for it. But yeah, I mean, up until yesterday's game, the Liberty have been on fire. I mean, just the way they've been playing, considering they haven't had Benijah Laney Hamilton, who's still resting. She should be back hopefully next week. I know she had knee surgery during the Olympic break and the All-Star break, which helped. But they didn't look like they missed a beat. The Liberty looked very strong still playing well, still playing strong. Teams coming together. I mean, the practices clearly helped them while they were on the Olympic break. Players were playing. I'm just loving the chemistry that they have. This team looks like they mean business. Um, they're protecting home court. I think this was their second home court loss, which is not bad. But again, this was winnable. The Liberty just kind of tossed this one back. Wasn't really impressed with the play. I just thought defensively it was a little lazy. The passes were awful. Liberty had a lot of turnovers in yesterday's game, which was just not like them. I didn't understand why there were so many turnovers. Um, so yeah, we'll see. But here's the thing too with the Liberty, they're playing every other day until the regular season ends. So they played yesterday. They play again tomorrow. They play tomorrow against Phoenix. They play a Wednesday against Los Angeles. They play Friday against Seattle. And then they play their next game again is on Thursday, September 5th. So they have a somewhat of a break. But they're pretty much back to back. They're every other game. So listen, coming back from the Olympic break and the All-Star break and you won 8 games in a row, that speaks volumes. But I think with the remaining games that they have left, which is what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 games left, the Liberty have to me, you want to win the majority of those games. I say maybe if you lose 2. You
And you
got to.
want I'm sorry for joining in. My internet is kind of funky today. And you also want to maintain that separation. We know they do have home court advantage, but let's just keep it throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because you want to have teams, Caitlin's got her stride, she's on a tear as far as just her records and her scoring. So you want to maintain as much separation, as possible. And they play they can't seem to, for whatever reason, beat the Lynx, but that's another story. But yeah, they've been doing, they're on a tear, and that's what it is. You want to, keep that momentum going. So
Right.
I just think that that's important.
Yeah. I mean, Indiana Fever, they're 13-16. They're not even a 500 team. They just lost their last game. Same thing with the Chicago Sky. They're 11-17, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw that video of Chicago in the press conference. So Camila Cardoza and their point guard, I forget her name, Lindsay, what's her name? Lindsay Allen, I think her name is Lindsay Allen.
Mm.
They were doing a press conference, the post game press conference. All you hear is chairs sounding like chairs are thrown against walls in the back. Camilla, it, she looking scared like it's a shootout and she don't know what's going on because she's so distracted by the noise. She keeps doing this and she's like trying to fix her hair because it's after the game. But she's like, and Lindsay Allen is embarrassed. You can tell she's embarrassed because the noise is getting louder. This
Mm.
is not fans going, oh, Angel Reese, or this is not fans. This is the locker room
Yeah.
is right next door. So Lindsay Allen's like, can someone close the door? This is a live post game press conference. No one closes the door. She's like, can someone close the door? No one closed the door. And all you hear is bap, bap, just yelling. And it sounds like a chair or someone was banging against a wall. And I was like, so it made me, and I meant to send you that video. I said, is that why Marina Mabry left? Is there underlying drama there that we don't know about?
Could be.
Maybe that's why she wanted out. Now, granted, it fit Connecticut because they needed somebody to give them some 3-point scoring besides Dewana Bonner. But I don't know. And then it made me think how I've seen in Chicago when they do their post game press conferences, how Teresa Witherspoon, I mean, yeah, Teaspoon, how she be like, how a counselor at a school and they gotta watch a certain student because they may just say something outlandish and they're
Mhm.
like, yeah, you gotta tap somebody, be like, not here. I've seen her have to do that with certain players, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why does Spoon be like tapping their knees sometimes? Because I guess they have no filter and they're just gonna say, bah, 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 bah. They're gonna. I haven't seen her have to do that with Angel Reese, but some of the other players, I guess, Kennedy Carter, some of the other ones, maybe she's like, I gotta watch them because they may say something that's gonna end up getting them a fine or expose something that's
Yeah,
going
they're
on in the
young
locker
and
room.
new to.
So I don't know what's going on in Chicago, but and let me tell you something, Chicago better watch out because Atlanta's on their heels. They may be sitting eighth, but Atlanta's won their last few games, so they've been able to win. Atlanta's 10-18, Chicago's 11-17.
See, that's my point. Like that's why the Liberty have to maintain that lead because you want to have teams, creeping and crawling their way up, in the standings.
Right.
And so now they've gained the momentum, as a team, as collectively. And so now things start shifting in their favor. So the Liberty need to keep, they don't hit that, they keep hitting that stride and and progress and winning games and games that are winnable that that you can win. You're the better team, So, but I always say anybody's beatable, but you want to maintain that separation. That's what I'm trying to, because teams will creep up in the standings, and now they could be sitting at a whatever 4 or 5 seed, and so it's just important keep that at the focal point. Like, let's continue to win these games. Let's not falter and collapse now. We're right there, so that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think Brianna Stewart hit the nail on the head where she said it's important that we don't peak too early, which is true. Like, stay steady where you're at now, but I think at some point the playoffs is where you need to peak. Now they have 10 games left. I have them at 8-2. They do play Minnesota. They play Washington, Atlanta. They play Seattle back to back. They play LA, Phoenix. and there's another. Oh, they play Dallas again as well. So again, I have them 8-2. It's important that they finish up the next 10 games, the last 10 games strong, like
Yeah,
you said. But it's important that you peak and turn the page and take your game to the next level in the playoffs. Because again, those teams like your Chicago Skies, your Indiana Fever, those teams are the teams that can knock those better teams in the league out.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, so if you're not paying attention, you will get booted out. Shout out to Paris Jugger. Yes, the first round is the best 2 out of 3, and then the remaining rounds are the best of 3 out of 5. Yeah. So then that's another thing too. 2 out of 3, you got to make sure you get the first game. Hell, you got to get the first one. That's who sets the tone. So the Liberty, the great thing is they have home court, but they need to protect it. And one thing I've noticed with this Liberty team going back to last year in the finals, the Liberty sometimes they drop the games that matter, the important games. Last year against the Aces in the finals, that could have brought it back to Vegas. They dropped it in Brooklyn. This year at the Commissioner's Cup against Minnesota, even despite the whole drama with
win.
the draft that was happening and they changed the arena. That was a game that they should have won.
Yeah,
They dropped that game. They fell flat in the second half of that game. And this year it's pivotal that they stay on point in the playoffs and there's no room to fall flat. You
yeah,
want to win those first games in these playoff rounds so this way you could set the tone and take the next one and not do this back and forth game. So he said, man, Collier is pushing for that MVP challenge. Yeah, but I don't think they're going to give it to her because Asia Wilson, the numbers that she's putting up, and because
yeah,
Asia was really upset that she didn't get it last year and they gave it to Brianna Stewart, and people felt like Asia Wilson should have won it and not Stewie, not just because Stewie plays for the Liberty, Stewie's numbers reflected that MVP status and that MVP caliber, but I agree. I think Nafisa Collier is playing amazing this season. Minnesota has won their last 6 so far games, but I for sure 100% they're going to give it to Asia Wilson
age,
this
yeah,
year.
but me too. She has been
And
just all and she's been steady. So
yeah,
is throughout the series and the playing. So her numbers is just phenomenal.
yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to Asia Wilson. Paris said Kennedy is getting jealous of Angel. You think so? I'm really nosy. Like I want to know what the drama is about. If you guys go on social media, actually it's here on YouTube. The guy who posted it, I saw it on TikTok. He posted it. Matter of fact, this morning when I went to YouTube on the laptop, I saw it up. It was like one of the top viewed, not viewed,
Mhm.
but recommended videos to watch. And he had the longer version because he had put it in 2 parts. And I'm gonna send it to you when we get off of here. You should see Camila Cardoso's face. She was like her face was like, what the hell is going on? Like, what's that noise? Because it sounded like I don't know, like if two people were fighting in the back or it just sounded crazy. I was like, where is that noise? Because they're not gonna have all that kind of ruckus and noise during a press conference
Yeah.
and not in the locker room. They may be talking, but they're
It
not
could
gonna be making that kind of noise.
yeah, it could have been a heated exchange in the locker room between the two of them. We don't know, you know?
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Maybe it could be drama. Like I said, Marina Mabry, she wanted out of there. And soon as they was able to make that trade deadline happen with her, they damn sure did. And she got the hell up out of there because maybe there was some drama. I think she had issues with Kennedy, but technically Marina Mabry had issues with what's her name on Connecticut.
Oh,
She had I don't know why, but she apparently had drama with Dejanay Carrington.
yeah.
So listen, well, they playing together now, so you got to put the beef aside, and it's
Yeah,
about but Dejanay tried to step over Jayla. Did you see that at the end of the game?
No, I didn't watch. No.
So Sandy Brondello put
Oh,
Jayla
Sherrod. Yeah.
Sherrod in the game, who reminds me of Deuce McBride, the way she.
Yeah.
So she guarding Dejanay, who's just as fast as Kennedy Carter. So she trying to Jayla's trying to chase Dejanay, and Dejanay wraps around, puts the wrap around Jayla to like get away from her. So Dejanay did one of these and pushed Jayla down on the floor,
Oh,
and then stepped over her. The disrespect. So Jayla didn't like that. So the ref was standing over Jayla too, but the ref threw the ball down to remove them. So Jayla slid her body through the ref's legs, pushed Dejanay, and they got into a whole scuffle. They called technical fouls. It was crazy. But then, even early in the game, Dejanay, she put her foot where Sabrina landed. Sabrina ankle, whoop whoop. Roz Gold Oyuende said, "That's the last thing you want." Sabrina just came back from a sore neck. You wanted to have an ankle injury and be out? Sabrina was off last night. She only hit 1 3. The Liberty, I think, I don't know if they were 4 for 20 something, 25, 28 from the 3 point
wow.
line. Couldn't buy a three. And honestly, the only person that was really hitting the threes was Leonie Febesh, which I don't know why we weren't giving her the ball more. And John Cole Jones, if you can watch the highlights, lazy, lazy, lazy defense.
I think it could have been an off night for them. And some teams have them. You're not gonna win. Yeah, you could go to go winless. That's hard. And I think it was just an off night for them for whatever reason. Is Connecticut the better team? No, they just had a off night for the Liberty. But best believe Sandy will have them ready for the next game. She's good at calling timeouts to regroup. I just think that they just had an off night.
Yeah, tomorrow they go back on the
Road.
road for a West Coast trip. So they play
Yeah.
Phoenix tomorrow at 10, and then on Wednesday they play the Los
Well,
Angeles Sparks. The Sparks, the Liberty seem to have their number, but we thought that against Connecticut, and look at what Connecticut did. They turned up the defense. Phoenix tomorrow, it's a later game because it's out in Phoenix, but I think the Liberty have to be prepared for Diana Taurasi. She can come alive at any given time. They also have to be prepared for what's her name? Let me get her.
the one that was in the Olympics.
Yeah, they have to be prepared for Kalia Copper,
Yeah.
Sophie Cunningham, Natasha Cloud, and Rebecca Allen, who sometimes we decide to leave open and she wants to shoot threes and shoot the lights out of the stadium. So the Liberty have to step up their defense and get back on the winning column. And then when you play against the Sparks, I think you have to watch out for what's her name? She was also on the Olympic team as well. Well, um, hold on, I got her name. You gotta watch out for De'Erica Hamby,
Mhm.
right? And then Ray Burrell, I would say to some degree, but Rakia Jackson, because she can go off at any given time. I saw a video of Rakia Jackson and she looked frustrated after a recent game that the Sparks played. I don't know who it was against, but she was just sitting on the bench shaking her head with a towel over her face because I know she's tired of losing.
Yeah.
I
Well,
get tiring after a while. And she's really their only option. And again, it sucks that Cameron Brink tore her ACL because that's who they had the team around. It was Cameron, Rakia, and De'Erica Hamby. That was going to be their three-headed monster. So I don't know. I think that the Liberty will get back in the winning column. I'm very confident in that. I just think that they have to be mindful, finish off the rest of these 10 games strong, but also peak and really bring that energy up for the playoffs. Parrish at the Liberty of fine that Olympic trip had hit them at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
They
mean,
just
but the
gotta.
fact that they won eight straight out of the Olympic break, that speaks volumes because they could have came out flat,
Yep.
but you know, all the WNBA teams were holding at least two practices a day. Like you were telling me, you read Caitlin Clark was saying all teams will practice because even I saw the Liberty were posting their practices on Instagram. So teams were still practicing. It wasn't a vacation just because team
Yeah.
players were in the Olympics. It was like, let's get better and figure out how we could still stay in shape and stay ready for when the second half of the season comes. So, I just think, and I agree with you, it was an off night. It was a very rare off night. Connecticut got lucky because the Liberty weren't able to knock down threes, but they'll get back to that. And I think this West Coast trip is definitely going to be one that the Liberty have to just be ready, stay ready, and stay healthy out as well. We need all our key players, and hopefully I think what having Benai Jelani Smith back is going to help. So I'm excited to see her back to give them a lift, and yeah, we'll see what
And
happens.
it's also a test because they're playing minus the Sparks teams that are over 500. So this is like a test for them. Minus the Sparks. Seattle's over 5. They're 18 and they were 10. Phoenix is what 16 or 14. Yeah, they're still over 500. It doesn't matter where they sit. They're playing teams are over 500. So
Right.
again, this is a test for them. To see, okay, this is a road trip. We have home court advantage. That's locked. But let's see if we could continue taking care of business away. You know,
Right.
so this is a good test for them.
So they play tomorrow against Phoenix, Wednesday against LA, the Los Angeles Sparks, and then they play Friday against the Seattle Storm. What are your predictions for the next three games?
I still think that I'm gonna go 3-0 with them. Um, Yeah, I'm still gonna go 3-0. That they could take all three of these games, on the road. Because again, this is the test for them. They've shown what they can do. They've beaten the Aces at their home. Um, I think even Seattle, I think they got for the most part, things that was a rough game for them at home. That's what, like I said, Sergi's, in their ear with the practice. So I definitely have them 3-0.
I got them 2-1. While I would love for them to beat Seattle back to back, Seattle
Okay.
have Nneka Ogumaway, Skylar Diggins Smith, and then Jewel
Mm.
Lloyd. That's a tough feat. And
And they just signed Gabby. Was that Seattle that got Gabby Williams?
I think it was Seattle Storm that got her back on the team. And
Yeah.
Stewie's played and won a championship with Jewel Lloyd. So, she knows how they play and how they get down. But yeah, I got them 2-1
Yeah.
because again, it would be surprising if LA beat them. The Liberty pretty much have figured out how to beat the Los Angeles Sparks. But I think between that Phoenix game tomorrow and then the first of the back to back against Seattle, that's going to be we'll have to see what happens between the Phoenix or Seattle game to see if the Liberty are able to take those games. So we'll see. I mean, yeah. And then, we have another rematch against the Aces. We play Minnesota again, Atlanta, Washington, and the Sparks in Dallas. I don't think we don't play Indiana anymore, yeah, or Connecticut. So Yeah, these are definitely some good matchups. Definitely some good matchups. We'll be at a few of the next few games as well, so that'll be exciting. Salute to Corey Lee. Thanks for joining us in the 718 boys. And salute to everybody who was in the chat today who joined us, and those of you who are not active in the chat but watched us, as well as the replay game. Those of you who are new here, support the channel, subscribe to the channel. Even while you're watching, whether it's this video or older video, hit the like button. It helps us get out on the algorithm. Um, and yeah, we will be back. We got more Knicks to talk about, more New York Liberty to talk about. It's a lot going on. Basketball wise, NBA news related wise, and the Liberty and the WNBA being very active. And the playoffs is going to get very spicy because it's going to be very interesting to see what happens this year in the playoffs. So we'll see. But anything else for you before we get out of here?
Nah, I'm just, you know me, I'm just ready for the Knicks. I'm gonna say the whole podcast until they start, till they tip that ball off for the regular season. Now, thanks to the chat for joining us, and definitely a big thanks to Queen for joining us.
Yeah, for sure. Always, we got to have her back, and we have to start the women's panel again too because those are always great shows to have. So I'm excited to looking forward to getting back to that as well and talking Knicks with the ladies. So yeah, salute to Queen, like you said. Salute to everybody who joined us: Walter Blackman, Wonder Woman, Just Knicks, Milkman 23, Knicks 119 Art hashtag, Knicks 100 a GM. Pablo Demas, Cody, who else? King Ribby RM for always joining us as well. Q Burrow brother, salute to you. Old head, salute to you as well. He's always tuning in and joining us. Parish Duggar, Juan B, salute to you. Space Ghost, salute to you. J Boogie, Dope Soul Sports and Knicks Talk. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Ron over at Still Knicks Fan, subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. Corey Lee from the 718 Boys. Subscribe to their channel if you haven't already. And I think that's everybody today. Salute to everybody for joining. And those of you who are not in the chat, salute to you as well for checking us out. Until next time, everybody,